If you want to go to the racetrack, but you only have a front-wheel drive car, there are ways to make it fun, I promise. This little 2007 Toyota Yaris is an absolute blast on track, and there are 5 mods that I've put on this that I recommend that any front-wheel drive track car has. So let's start with the most important one, and it's really important for any track car, and that's tires. So trackable tires is a pretty obvious mod for someone building a track car. 200 tread wear is usually where most people land. It gives them something they can drive on the street. It gives them something they're not gonna have to spend a whole bunch of money on, and it still gives a decent amount of grip. Now, a lot of people say that when you're learning, you don't wanna go to really sticky rubber right away. Usually what they're referring to are slicks or semi-slicks, so don't start off on Hoosiers, don't look at the 100 tread wear, but 200 tread wear, maybe even some of the 300, 280 tread wear stuff, that's usually a really good place to start. And with front wheel drive cars, you are in luck because everything gets a little bit cheaper. In general, front wheel drive cars are lighter and smaller. That's not always the case, but in general, they're definitely going to have smaller tires, which means that they're cheaper. Over here, I've got some 195/50 R15 Toyo R1Rs. I've got some 225 Hankook RS4s, and there are 205 RT660s on my car right now. In total, I don't think I've spent $1,000 on track tires for this Yaris in my life. And I've been tracking this thing for 3 years. They're called economy cars for a reason. They're economical on track as well. And because of that price advantage, you can probably get a grippier tire than most people would expect. And now all of a sudden, because you have a grippy car that's lightweight, you can start to have fun pretty much right away. Same goes for the wheels that you're gonna be mounting these tires on. 15x7s, 15x8s are generally cheaper than 17x9s or 18x10s, mostly just because of the sheer amount of material needed. And I know that's more of a cheap car thing than a front wheel drive versus rear wheel drive thing. There are definitely front wheel drive platforms that have very big wheels and tires, but at that point you're also spending that money on the car as well. So it's usually cheaper compared to a rear wheel drive car that costs a similar amount, if that makes sense. And honestly, I think that tires are the #1 mod, whether you are driving a rear wheel drive car, front wheel drive car, expensive car, cheap car, whatever. Tires make a big difference. Not just in your lap times, but also in the amount of fun you have. The next mod I recommend is an LSD. 99% of the front wheel drive vehicles you're gonna find are going to be open differentials, and one of the biggest problems that front wheel drive cars have on track is understeer. Most people think of an LSD in terms of a rear wheel drive car being able to put power down to the road, but it works in a front wheel drive vehicle as well, especially mid-corner. If you go into a corner, you brake hard, you turn in, you can pretty much get on the throttle before the apex with an LSD. This thing absolutely tears through corners. While other people are sliding, trying to keep up a minimum speed, this thing can be on the paint almost with my foot to the floor. The only downside is that it's a lot harder to install an LSD in a front wheel drive car because it means taking out the gearbox and opening it up, because that is where the differential is in a front wheel drive car. With a rear wheel drive car, you have a pumpkin in the back that is usually a lot easier to get to. So if you are pulling your entire transmission to install an LSD, think about the other things that could go in at the same time, different final drive, refreshing the gearing, all kinds of stuff to make sure that pulling that transmission out is actually worth it. Okay, this next one might honestly be a little hypocritical. I don't know, you're gonna have to tell me, but I really think that a shifter is gonna make a big difference in a front wheel drive car. Now I say it's hypocritical because I absolutely love this WK Motorsport shifter that I have, but I haven't had the chance to take it out to track yet. So your mileage may vary. I did have a short throw shifter in before this, and anything that I was doing to the shifter really did start to make a difference. The reason is that in a front wheel drive car, the transmission is way far away from where your actual shifter is. So the connectivity between the 2 points is a cable system or a lever system, and there's gonna be some kind of play or slop in there. It's usually not as crisp and as sharp as a rear wheel drive setup, where the transmission's pretty much right underneath the shifter. The linkages are shorter, there's less play in them, they feel notchy, they feel a lot better. Again, not true of every platform, and if you are in a dual clutch car or something like that, that doesn't really matter. But if you have a manual and your transmission is far away from where your hand is actually doing the shifting, you're gonna want a nice notchy shifter. The next one I have on my list is coilovers, but not for the reasons that a lot of you are thinking. Yes, coilovers will give you much more mechanical grip on track. They'll stop the body from sloshing. There'll be more control to your suspension and to your feel to the track in general on any car. But on a front wheel drive car specifically, one of the biggest things that you often need to combat is the fact that they're very front heavy. And what you can do when you start adjusting suspension is you can start to compensate for that a little bit. Obviously, the best solution is always going to be to even out that weight distribution, but if it's not an option, the next best thing is to choose your spring rates based on your corner balance. For a front wheel drive car, what that means is stiffer springs up front, softer springs in the rear. You can kind of stop the car nosediving every time you brake, and that'll help balance out the car a little bit. Usually this is not an improvement that rear wheel drive cars need. So with front wheel drive cars, there's a little more to be gained from installing coilovers. On my Toyota Yaris, I've taken so much weight out, but it's still very front heavy. So I have 9K springs up front and only 5K in the rear. This helps me keep the front end up when I'm in heavy braking and the whole thing doesn't just want to tumble over on itself. Evening out that weight distribution is going to have a better effect. But if that's not an option, if you're tracking a daily driver or something like that, where that weight swing is just not in the cards for you, adjusting the coilovers, changing your spring rates, next best thing. And finally, I think one of the more important mods is actually going to be your exhaust. And I don't mean because it makes the car sound cool or it makes it sound more like a race car or anything like that. It's because you're actually really going to need to be able to hear your exhaust on track, because you want to know what RPM you're at without having to look at the dashboard. You want to know where you're going to need to shift. You want to know when you're coming up to a limiter or anything like that. If you're bouncing it off the rev limiter, you want to be able to know. And obviously, on the road, you can hear that no problem. You're probably the loudest car around. But when you're on track and there's a 350Z with 4-inch piping all the way through coming by you, or a Corvette Z06 or anything like that, you are gonna lose track of your engine note very easily. So you want a little bit of a louder exhaust to be able to hear your engine at all times. Now, an intake can do this as well, depending on your engine. But I think exhaust is a good thing to have, especially if you're also driving the car on the road, and if you are off throttle, you're not going to hear your intake, where you are still going to hear your exhaust. You're still going to know what revs you're at. It's going to be very helpful. And also, who's going to complain if your race car sounds a little bit more like a race car? Anyway, those are my thoughts from tracking a front wheel drive car for the last 3 years. If you feel like I missed something, pop it down in the comments. And if you want to see more of this car, there are some big updates coming for it in 2024. So stick around and I'll show you in the next video.